I would say that Sweden's social structures are under severe stress.
Magnus Ranstorp is an expert on extremism in Scandinavia.
It's a cocktail of various ingredients which makes society extremely polarized, and the government is having a really difficult time dealing with this.
As a refugee here, I would say it's pretty hostile.
Sweden is facing a critical moment, especially with the rise of the right-wing Sweden Democrats. This party is focusing on issues like integration, crime, and economic pressures. In the latest election, their support increased to 20.6%, making them the second largest party in parliament, and pushing the government towards stricter policies, such as border checks and deportation centres. The rise of the Sweden Democrats has significantly changed the political landscape. Founded in 1988 as a minor party uniting different far-right groups, they have transformed under Jimmie Åkesson's leadership since 2005. By moving away from extreme views, the party has adopted a more populist approach, especially regarding immigration. This shift has attracted many Swedish voters concerned about the number of immigrants and the difficulties in integrating them.
Sweden is struggling to accommodate 165,000 people who have applied for asylum there amid the refugee crisis. Now, in a reversal of its open-door policy, the government says as many as half could face deportation. A growing right-wing reaction to the migrant influx has fueled tensions.
Many Swedes now believe that the high number of immigrants has negatively impacted their country. They claim Sweden isn't safe anymore, pointing to rising crime rates, gang violence, and even bombings. They say the welfare state is struggling to keep up with demands, schools are overcrowded, hospitals are full, and housing is scarce. As a result, many feel the country is dividing, with different cultures clashing and the economy under pressure. Sweden's image has shifted from a model welfare state to a warning example.
No, not at all.
How can you prove that?
It's proved by my actions, or if you just walk around, look at our website, we have our program there, Manifest.
I think the greatest threat that Sweden is facing is that we have an equal amount of extremism. We have a lot of right-wing extremism and of course left-wing extremism. There is a sort of reciprocal.
Foreign-born citizens now make up 20% of Sweden's population, and officials are dealing with rising crime, economic issues, and a failing education system. So how did Sweden, once known for its welcoming immigration policies, become a country with some of the strictest measures in Europe? After World War II, Sweden built a strong economy, supported by a stable democracy and social cooperation. The country had great healthcare and education, along with low crime rates. However, today, Sweden has the highest rate of gang-related killings in Europe. Surprisingly, many serious offenders are teenagers. Some suburbs are called vulnerable areas, where police have a hard time working because of gang control. First responders often need protective gear and police escorts to enter these neighborhoods. Sweden has faced a major challenge with a flood of immigrants and not enough integration. Once a peaceful heaven, it now ranks second in the world for bombings among countries not at war. In response to these pressing issues, Sweden has adopted a serious approach to immigration. The question is whether these tough measures will save Sweden and if they can serve as a model for the rest of Europe. With a population of just 10.6 million, Sweden is in the middle of a national crisis, struggling to integrate a massive wave of immigrants. For many, the dream of a safe and prosperous Sweden is gone, replaced by chaos and uncertainty. Political scientist Johan Martinsson from the University of Gothenburg explains that the party's success is linked to the large number of asylum seekers and the changing demographics regarding ethnicity. This concern resonates with many workers worried about job security and competition from low-wage labor, boosting the Sweden Democrats to new heights in the political arena. In the latest elections, the Sweden Democrats achieved a remarkable 20.5% of the vote, solidifying their position as the second strongest party in the country. This marked their best electoral performance, surpassing even more mainstream right-wing parties. Their anti-immigration stance, once considered extreme, has now become mainstream, influencing the policies of the right-wing coalition and contributing to their narrow victory over the centre-left. The Sweden Democrats have used controversial tactics to promote their message, such as public displays against immigration and distributing leaflets in refugee hotspots. These actions have polarized the immigration debate, forcing other parties to confront the issue directly. The rise of the Sweden Democrats is part of a broader trend of increasing populism and nationalism across Europe, with far-right parties gaining votes as people lose trust in traditional politics and call for stricter immigration rules. As Sweden's politics change, the big question remains, how can the country keep its caring values while dealing with the real problems that come with immigration? This issue is central to Sweden's national discussion and will shape its future. The impact of the Sweden Democrats on policy is already noticeable. Plans are underway for special reception centres for asylum seekers, more detention facilities, and return centres for those whose applications are denied. Starting in 2024, Sweden introduced strict changes to its migration policy, centralising the processing and housing of asylum seekers to control where they live and limit their movements. These centres are part of a bigger plan to manage migration better. Asylum seekers will no longer be able to choose where to live. This has led to a lot of debate, with critics saying that Sweden's new policies are too harsh and lack compassion. Public opinion is split. Some people support the government's tough approach, while others worry it goes against Sweden's humanitarian values. One of the most controversial parts of the new policy is the creation of return centres for asylum seekers whose applications have been denied. The government has invested a lot of money in these centres, demonstrating a strong commitment to controlling immigration. Sweden, once known for its welcoming stance, has now made a significant shift in its immigration policies. In addition to setting up reception centres, Sweden has introduced stricter asylum laws to reduce the number of migrants. These measures include thorough checks to prevent abuse of the asylum system and crackdowns on illegal immigration. Despite the challenges, Sweden's new migration policies are showing results, with a significant decrease in the number of asylum seekers. By centralising the asylum process and prioritising efficient returns, Sweden aims to establish a sustainable and fair migration system. The story of Sweden's immigration policy is changing. Once a welcoming nation, Sweden is now making major changes in response to the current climate. The country's decision to implement strict identity checks on all incoming traffic from Denmark marks a significant shift. In 2016, Sweden began moving away from its historically generous refugee policies to reduce the influx of migrants after an unprecedented surge in asylum applications in 2015. That year, Sweden received a staggering 160,000 asylum seekers, nearly double the previous record of 84,000 set in 1992. The large number of arrivals put a strain on Sweden's resources, leading local councils to set up temporary shelters in gyms, churches, and even tent camps. In response to this unsustainable situation and increasing public skepticism, the Swedish government announced several policy changes in the fall of 2015. These changes included faster processing times for asylum applications, stricter rules for rejected applicants, and the establishment of dedicated reception centres for asylum seekers. Let's see what the Interior Minister of Sweden, Anders Ygeman, said about the current situation.
Made to meet the demands from this group, and we also have a problem with returning them to Morocco if they don't have the right to be in Sweden.
So how do you think you're doing?
Well, I think we're going in the overall picture. We're doing quite well.
But that's not what the police union is saying. They say that this is no longer the nice society it used to be.
Well, I think even the police union should look forward and not backwards. But if we want to compare the figures and stats backwards, we can say that we haven't had this many policemen in 35 years.
They say that you need an extra 4,000 and you're not going to give them enough.
We have never had this much policemen. We have never had this much money to fund the police as we have now. And we have a lower crime rate.
In the wake of these disturbances, the Swedish government is to launch a task force to crack down on vigilantes who might be thinking about taking the law into their own hands.
The government allocated a significant amount of money, about $150 billion, in its 2024 budget for different areas of migration policy. This funding is especially aimed at increasing detention space and helping return unsuccessful asylum seekers to their home countries. Sweden's migration policy is experiencing a major shift, focusing on reducing the number of migrants while maintaining respectful reception standards. As Sweden strives to maintain its humanitarian values, The challenge remains: how to balance these ideals with the pressing issues of integration and public safety. The future of Sweden's immigration policy and its impact on society will be closely watched, not just within the country, but across Europe, as other nations face similar challenges.